you don't see a tomato taking a gun and killing another tomato. Like they naturally, but like it's a plant. But the way the world was designed, nature before interference, like if you go back, like I'm talking like millions of years ago, like back when there was like no humans with no like arms, like nothing to kill like one another or to dominate other parts of like the ecosystem. Plants do live in relative harmony. They might compete for sunlight, they might compete for water, but there's more than enough to go around, and they stop at that once they get what they need. They don't go for more, and they don't search to dominate over the other plant. You understand what I mean? Like if you also look at underground, I'm gonna go back to what Tanya said about with the mushrooms. Like if you see, there's a much more like cooperation in the plant world than there is in ours, because there's mushrooms underground helping the roots grow, helping flowers grow, right? But we don't see that. We don't have like our own little mushrooms helping us grow. Like we just see a bunch of people like they judge behind other people's back, and they're just not nice. Whereas plants, they might compete. Like being competitive is like a part of who we are, but.
Let's say you plant like a soil of radish. Those radish are gonna they like produce. Yeah, they produce that chemical in order for like, let's say if you want to plant a tomato in that soil, it won't grow. So,
but if you give it enough space to grow, that's the thing with nature. If you give it enough space to grow, it will be fine. If you go to a forest, they don't all secrete the chemical to kill all the other trees. You know what I mean?
Any other questions? Esme and then Simone.
I just wanted to share some knowledge while we were talking about like being peaceful with animals. I work at the SPCA and I get a lot of the same phone calls every day, and I wanted to like share a bit of info with you guys now that like summer's starting. If you see a litter of kittens outside, leave them there. The mom is gonna come back. She only comes back like once or twice a day to feed them. But if you take the kittens out of the place that they were at, most chances are they're gonna die in the next like 24 hours. So leave them there. Same thing with baby raccoons and squirrels. The only thing you want to do is if you see like one baby squirrel that fell from a tree, if you could put it in a box and attach it to a tree, like maybe like 5 foot high, that way the mom will be able to go get it. Those are just like little tips, because like many people think that they're doing the right thing, saving baby animals in summer, bringing them to like refuges and whatever. But it's actually like complete false information, and they actually die a lot of the time. So I just wanted to like share that for you guys.
Thanks, Esme. Simone?
We're just gonna add a comment about the plants and how like they compete with each other depending. Like we, because I come from a village and there's a forest there, and in the forest there's just a small section with pine trees, and it was not naturally like grown there. It was planted there by people, and they used a method. Oh shit. And they used a method like if they put certain trees like as to a certain distance from one another, one out of two is going to grow up, and the other one is going to stay really short, because this like they fight for nutrients and everything. So there's a struggle for survival. Like we have our own struggle for survival, but I understand your point at the same time when you mean there is more harmony in between.
Because also they can have enough, like if they're planted right next to each other, for sure one's gonna sprout fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Not maybe because they're competing, but also because it's just the way like one gets more sunlight. But if they're planted like in a good distance, they're not going to fight each other.
Yeah, so that's why like if you look at forests, like trees are a certain distance from another, and that's why like it's more in between different species that you can find harmony them in between the same species. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Yes, Talia.
Just about like farming and stuff, like I agree with everything you said, but a lot of the times it's like a bad light shed on farmers because of things like that. But like I've worked on 2 dairy farms, like small farming, and I've never seen people who like love their animals more than like those farmers. And I know that's not everyone, but like in small farming communities, there's a lot of like love for the animals too.
Yeah,
That's
it is true. No, I know
Yeah.
somebody too. They have like they're really close to them, and they grow but like they raise chickens and rabbits and stuff, and she like hugs them all the time and stuff. But like, yeah, it is a job and stuff. I'm more talking about the ones that are industrial and really
Yeah.
intense, and where most of the people buy their products from, because those little markets are probably more expensive and
yeah.
harder. Like not everybody could afford that.
Chantal?
Yeah, in the large industries where animals are raised in a kind of cruel way that you just showed us, is it better to grow it in smaller farms like what the other person just said, with all the love and the harmony, and then still at the end slaughter them for food? So which one do you know?
Well, kind of like, well, which one am I? I'm obviously more for the one where you could love, because they would have a life. They would also have like experience love and affection, and well, kind of like in between. I know like if we don't kill any animals, that our world could be overpopulated with animals. But I mean,
Yeah,
or
I don't know, because it still defeats the purpose. The lone farmer who raises his animal with all love and affection, and finally it's taken better.
and then you're just taking it away from them, kind of thing. I know, but I like living in a little thing like this that is just crazy. I would go insane. Like I don't know how you do that, and it's just like it's torture. Would you rather live in torture and then be killed, or would you rather live actually a life and then die at a young age or something?
I think that's a nice point that Sydney's making, in the sense like, would you step into that creature's shoes? We're all going to die, so, right? So if I'm living a free life and I die a quick death and my flesh goes to feed people, fine. But I would not like to live in a confined space filled with hormones and all sorts of... Olivia, and
If
then...
we just let like animals like die naturally, like of old age, can we still eat them?
That's a very good question. Does anybody have the answer to that?
It depends if it's healthy. But like.
And how long after it died, I guess, would be an important consideration as well. Gabby?
Can I just like add to something? Just more of a general for like all of this, like no matter what discipline you choose to analyze piece of nature from, it's all about baby steps. So like if you're asking Sydney if letting an animal get killed after having a happy life on the farm versus factory farming, well, for sure, like first you start off by not buying meat that's raised. You make that commitment not to buy meat that was raised in a factory farm, and if you want to take that commitment further, then you might decrease your consumption of like, you know, anything in a farm in general. Like even if they do love their animals, and I have no doubt that they do, like it's all about like where you stand on the issue, like of how far you want to take that commitment, like a factory farming versus like the traditional way of farming. Like they both end up the same way. It's just a different means. So it depends how far you want to take it.
Any other questions or comments? I guess at the end of the day, we each have to make our own decisions and try and look at the facts. Be as true to yourself as possible. I think that's to be a scientist. I like to be a scientist of the self. Look at the facts, engage compassion, empathy, and make your own call at the end of the day. Panelists, thank you very much.